But let me, I guess, give some knowledge and some warnings about what's coming up. So, you'd still suggest I play Sky first, but up to me. Yeah, yeah, I think that's where I'm going to end up going down the line. But I do need a break after this. This was quite a long game. It is. I started streaming this like April 23rd or something. So it's taken about half a year. It has been an amazing half year, but I do need a break from it to go to something else. And with that, we are going to be switching over to Higurashi Chapter 4. I'd mentioned this before. It is a visual novel that revolves around a boy in the 60s in rural Japan with his friends, and there's some kind of curse there. It's unclear whether it's a supernatural curse, like one from a deity, or if it's just people being absolute dicks. So with that, some warnings. This game does feature murder, gore, some of the other sensitive topics that we've had in the past. We've had child abuse was in the last game. We've had very descriptive scenes of torture. I know this is not for everyone. If that is not for you, by all means, don't you don't have to stick around. But it was great having you here so far. What else? If you were watching the anime, because it is currently being remade, it is my favorite anime. So first of all, we will be ahead of the current airing anime. More of an Umienko fan? I can dig that. Yes, thank you, Goris. You have been wonderful. You've had lots of wonderful information, and thank you for helping answer several questions in chat. It was quite useful, and I also learned quite a bit. Yes, what was I saying? If you are currently watching the airing anime, we'll be ahead of the airing anime. So another reason, if you want to dip out now, to not spoil it for yourself. Also, if you've not watched the anime and you're interested, don't watch the airing anime. Watch the original. I'm not caught up in the airing anime, but from the episodes I've seen, I do prefer the original. And I think the newer stuff spoils some things that it really shouldn't. And it sort of takes away some of the mystery. That is my take on it. But without further ado, I am going to get it started. And we also play using the 07th mod set. Basically, if you're not familiar with that, some fans went and remade all the sound effects, the art, basically most parts of the game have been remade, remastered by the 07th mod team. And we will be playing with that. I didn't actually see how far the what the art looks like. Oh, do we have the opening cut? Okay, we have an opening cutscene. I'll be quiet for that.
心に咲いた花は誰かの気持ちで色をまとうかけがえのないいくつもの場面嬉しさも悲しみも生きる証になる過ちも傷跡をそのまま受け止めよう癒されることじゃなくてただ明日を信じるなら
Okay. Right, I have my controller. This is not a controller game. This is a mouse and keyboard game. Okay, so I think I have the configuration all set up, but let's double check. Yep, English. I'll have to check the character sprites. I think it's P to switch when we're in. It will tell me when I open. Yes. But let's get started. And the new anime might be a sequel. I get the feeling you're correct. Either way, I still recommend people watching the original. At least first. Okay. So this is Arc 4. It's actually a very small arc. From what I saw online, it's about 6 to 8 hours of gameplay. I figured it's probably going to be more like 8 to 9, just because stream time is longer. But probably not more than like 2 or 3 streams worth. 3 or 4 streams worth. Yes, this is the time-killing chapter. I now entrust you with all the mysteries hidden within Higurashi when they cry. However comical it may be, you've reached any conjecture, then you have passed. Thank you, Goras. Yep. It's been a pleasure seeing you. I hope to see you around again. And have a great evening. This final novel is a meager reward for you. Conjecture is impossible. You have the right to reject this story. We will not, and instead we get creepy kid laughter. Who is the criminal, you ask? Don't we search for them in the story? Who's the criminal, you ask? Do you even know what the criminal did? Who's the criminal? Who is the criminal? Will kill me now. Slightly off in years. Midsummer 1985. Or no, this is actually in the future. I think they're 63. I had misread the time, ended up arriving too early. The schedule board flipped with a series of clacks. My flight to Sapporo was still a bit later on. I still had over an hour before boarding. Well, I might as well close my eyes for a bit on that bench over there, then. I came here directly from work, so maybe the fatigue from that was making me sleepy. Finding a suitable bench, I put my luggage on the seat next to me and settled down. Sighed like an old man. I'd hoped to stay young forever, but had become splendidly middle-aged. Apparently, the rumor that even people in the later half of their 20s experience a decline in their physical strength wasn't a lie. It had been mind-numbingly busy at work lately, so I rarely had any time to myself. This might have been the first time I'd been able to enjoy a journey alone like this since I was a student. The reason behind this trip is to meet with an old friend. It's a bit strange to call him an old friend. In fact, it might be better to call him a bad one. After retiring a couple of years ago, he moved to Sapporo, his mother's hometown. His mother passed away soon after. He was now peacefully enjoying his second lease on life. His name was Kurado Oishi. Okay, and they are going to explain. He was a former detective from the Primary Investigation Unit at the station Okinomiya XX Prefecture. To be honest, the only direct contact we ever had didn't last more than 3 days. After that, we exchanged New Year's cards, but never met again. This would be the first time meeting him in 7 years. In other words, we met 7 years ago. 1978. There was something I just had to ask, talk to him about concerning that time. Explain that it was impossible not to recall the incident that happened back then. That kidnapping, the details and resolution of which were resigned to darkness. Also, it was impossible not to recall a certain mysterious girl. My name is Mamoru Akasaka. It was a year that had been strangely hot, even though it was only June. Okay, let me see if... Not the log. Where's this menu? P to switch art styles, 7 to do lip syncing. Okay, we have no characters yet. When we do get characters, which I think is actually fairly late, we will go through the art styles.
はい、さようなら。車に気をつけるんですよ。お友達の家に寄り道なんかしないように。明日の教科書の準備は必ず寝る前にしておくんですよ。
Clatter, clatter, clatter. The lively sounds of children running towards the hallway.
でさ、つってんだぜ。
そんなの俺持ってるわよ。いらねえよ。
The unique high-pitched voice of youth. The energetic shrill of the cicadas went completely unheard by their ears. Children, returning home from school, split off one by one from their groups of friends. They went through intersections in the residential area. Even though there were several of them in a group as they left the school that got closer to their homes, their numbers dwindled. That's why the fewer friends you were walking home with acted as an indicator that you were much closer to your destination.
じゃあな。あばよ。
また明日ね。
He finally parted ways with his last friend. A van was parked at the bend in the road. The window was open, the sound of the radio leaking outside. Must have been the news or something.
たため、道路交通法違反、公務執行妨害で3名を逮捕しました。一連のひなみ沢ダム建設反対をめぐる運動は、先月の機動隊との流血事件を境に過激化の一途をたどっており、警察では過激な活動家による次の事件を警戒しています。先週も建設省庁舎前での犬飼建設大臣への直訴事件があったばかりで。
At that moment, a man's face peeked out suddenly from the window of the van. His behavior was a little different than that of a man looking around to see if there was any incoming traffic before he opened the door of his vehicle. I think they mean oncoming. But I guess incoming works. His eyes meeting suddenly with the unfamiliar man, the voice panicked slightly.
ウグイス OK。
ひばり OK。前後2ブロック確保した。いいぞ。
The man in the passenger seat whispered quietly. Nodding in acknowledgement, the man opened the door and stood before the boy.
君、犬飼俊樹君？
While asking that, the man peered at the boy's name tag. Toshiki Inugai, a name that was written plainly there. The phone rang for a third time. He reached out. He'd easily pick up the receiver. However, he was concerned that if he picked it up before it had even finished ringing once, whoever was on the other end of the line would think him a fairly cheap person. That's why he normally never picked up the phone until the third ring. Even he thought it was a worthless habit. However, his thinking that there isn't much meaning in waiting for just 3 rings, wouldn't waiting for 5 be alright, is very much a reality. Mind filled with such trifling thoughts, picked up the phone after the third ring had finished, its reverb dampened by his action.
はい。もしもし。もしもし。
Knew that sometimes, due to a malfunction at the switchboard, calls didn't connect well. Those times, it was best to hang up and let the person on the other end call again. Thinking that, the moment he began to hang up the phone, he sensed that he was definitely connected after all. He felt the presence of the person on the other end of the line, keeping silent.
もしもし。
There was no way they didn't hear his question. What was the meaning of this? It wasn't like he didn't know that people could use silent calls to harass others. However, he'd never received a call like that until today. Maybe he was just lucky before. He didn't believe that he would receive such a call on this phone. There were no direct calls to or from this line. Everything had to go through an operator. Therefore, there was absolutely no way the call would be connected unless it was verified there was somebody else on the other end of the line. That's why he didn't understand how to deal with this silent call and instead settled into confusion.
あんた、誰だか知らないが、用がないなら切るよ。また、かけ直してください。
Pretending that to be a parting line, he made to slam down the receiver. It was at that moment the person on the other end spoke for the first time.
あなたが名乗ってくれないから困ってんですよ。
That is terrifying.
あんたが犬飼大臣じゃないなら、さっさと電話を切ってください。
Couldn't help but be surprised by the extremely strange voice on the other end of the line. Was there a human alive who could speak with this hoarse and metallic voice? No. This was a voice he had heard somewhere before. That was the kind of voice that was on those low-brow documentaries they use when they want to hide the identity of a speaker, wasn't it? The voice he was hearing over the line was exactly like that.
あんた、誰？
だから、それはこっちが聞いてるんですよ。あんた、犬飼大臣じゃないの？
He, Inugai, hesitated to answer. Unable to discern the intent of the suspicious phone call, a vague feeling that something was off. He thought about hanging up the phone and asking the operator who initiated the call. However, he forced himself to restrain that urge. For the time being, chose to state his name and listen.
そうです。犬飼です。名乗りましたよ。だから、あんたも名乗ってくださいよ。
私の名前なんてどうでもいいんです。まず、あなたがどういう立場に置かれているか、それを認識するところから始めましょう。あなたは今、自分の席で電話をしていますね。では、あなたの席の右側の一番下の引き出しを開けてみてください。
Please don't be kids' hands or fingers. Lowest drawer, to the right of the minister's chair. There was a lock on it. Not enough to function as a safe, but nevertheless, it was a drawer that contained some valuable things. That's why Inugai thought that the person wanted some of the important information contained within that drawer.
すまんが、開けるつもりはないよ。自分の名前も名乗れんやつの言いなりになる言われはない。
引き出しを開けてくれないなら、この電話を切ります。きっと、後悔することになりますよ。まずは引き出しを開けてから考えてもいいんじゃないですか?
Inugai didn't like following orders from this suspicious person one bit. However, he was concerned about what the man said about regretting it, so he decided to open the drawer. He took the small key he kept stowed in his wallet and unlocked the drawer. His hand stopped right before he opened it. What if there was a bomb inside, and it would explode if the drawer was opened? That delusion took hold of him. He quelled that instinct, and opened it.
開けてくれましたか？そこにあるものが何かわかりますよね。
これはどういうことだ。おい、
どういうことか説明する必要なんかないですよね。時間を差し上げますので、少しお考えください。また後ほどこちらから連絡いたします。それでは失礼。
おい、待て。もしもし、もしもし。
Call had already ended. That would not change no matter how much he yelled at it. Even still, the new guy, without realizing that, continued yelling into the receiver for a while. The drawer was still open. On top of the folders, crammed into the drawer, it lay there. Yoshiki Inugai. Written in plain lettering, a grade schooler's name tag, just lying there. Enshrined there, completely out of place, as if it were cowering. So yeah. Oh, is this the same cutscene? I believe it is. If it is, I'm gonna skip it. Yeah, it's the same cutscene. We've already seen it. We will skip it. If you do want to see it, just roll back, I don't know, like 15 minutes. Or I'm sure you can also find it on YouTube. Oh, know what I haven't done? I'm going to quickly update the game I'm playing, because I forgot to do that. That is bad. That is something I should have done. I feel bad if people came in here expecting one game and got this. Gee. Okay, sorry about that. This should only take 1 second more. Okay, there we go. So that should be updated now. Okay. You remember, Yuki? This picture. This is where I first proposed to you. That brief moment before you nodded back. You probably wouldn't know just how much it seemed like an eternity to me. Yes. I would never have thought that amount of time could feel like an eternity. Compared to how long I had to wait for you to propose to me, it was... From the moment I met you until today, compared to the time I've spent since I was born, it'd only be a brief period, but they were definitely precious, beautiful days that deserve to be called an eternity. That time continues even now, from now on. Wonder if it'll be a boy, maybe a girl? Either one is fine. Boy or girl, either way, it's living proof that we love each other. It's a boy, we'll name it after you. Mamoru. It's a girl, put the Yuki from my name in hers. Thinking about names is so fun that in the end we still haven't decided yet. There's still time to puzzle over it. Not that long of a time, actually. See, Yuki. Something I have to apologize for today. About your job. Sorry. Looks like an annoying bit of work has come up. In the worst case, might not be able to be there for the delivery. It's fine. You have a very important job. What you do protects the way we live. Compared to you, it's nothing. Please, go ahead. When you return, I'll be waiting here with our child. Thank you. Also, sorry. Please don't apologize. Feel guilty about it, you can just atone. If I atone that much, no matter how much money I have, it won't be enough. It's a joke. Now, go on. As I left the room, I bumped into an elderly man. He was Yuki's father. In other words, my father-in-law. Deadbeard is back. Hello, Deadbeard. Welcome back. We have transition games. After 6 months and some odd days, we finally beat Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel, and we are now on to Uncle Hunting. Technically, this is Uncle Hunting 4.0, because this is the 4th game in the series. Uncle Hunting just didn't appear until the 3rd game. But what we've had so far is a kidnapping, and now we are with someone who has to leave for an important job while their wife is about to give birth to their child.
お父さん。
Was it a good kidnapping? I don't know.
邪魔する気はなかったからな。
The man had a code name. His code name was Nightingale. Does that make you feel better about it?
廊下で待たせてもらったよ。
They only sent his father his name tag. I thought they'd send him like a finger or a hand.
聞き耳を立てるつもりはなかったが、聞こえてしまった。
Name tag is worse. Hand could be gone.
生きたまえ。幸恵はああいう娘だ。何があっても自分が君の枷になることを望むまい。
私はこれまで幸恵にさまざまな犠牲を強いてきました。出産という人生の節目にまで彼女に犠牲を強いることを恥じます。
君が本当にそう思うなら、仕事が終わったら幸恵のために時間を割きなさい。君が仕事を投げ出して付き添ってくれるよりも、そうした方がきっと幸恵も喜ぶだろう。
ありがとうございます。
君がとても大切な仕事をしていることは私もよく知っている。
I want to know what we do. Are we the FBI? Do we have to go arrest me for that last game?
自分の仕事を誇りに思いなさい。幸恵は君が見事難題を解決して凱旋するのを楽しみにしている。
はい。
I jumped into the taxi that was waiting outside. Compared to the time when I first got here, numbers on the fare meter had grown considerably. It seemed the modest time Yuki and I spent together wasn't so modest from an objective point of view.
待たせてすみません。やってください。
I mean, the meter's probably running. He's probably like, whatever, I got to sit here and, browse stuff on, well, no, I guess phones weren't invented. I got to listen to the radio and get paid for it.
いえいえ。では、参りますよ。
The taxi jerked as it changed gears to accelerate, soon burying the hospital my wife was in behind a throng of buildings. It was to end up as a really troublesome ordeal. I probably wouldn't be returning for quite some time. To call a rookie like me, and on top of that, one who's off duty, it seemed that the section chief was calling for all hands on deck. The veteran upper brass, gathering on an emergency basis, happened occasionally. This was the first time, though, that I experienced everybody gathering together like this. Whatever was happening, there was no doubt it was going to be something novel. Right when my wife was ready to give birth. If I wanted to spend the time to curse my misfortunes, I'd be here all day. Even the verdant ginkgo trees lining the street that always brighten my mood seemed to lack some of their usual luster. Eventually, the government office came into view. Briefly holding my breath, I let the feelings of tension course through my body once again. I had to remember the work I was doing was important, necessary, and difficult. Compose myself and sharpen my wit. Ready. Taxi stopped in front of the building. Okay, so we're in the police.
室長、全員揃いました。
I figured that because we talked about Chief.
赤坂君、ブラインドを下ろしてくれる？
Blinds were usually closed when they needed to use the projector, or if the discussion was going to contain some particularly disturbing content. Or in this case, possibly both. The blinds closed with a satisfying sound, darkening the interior of the room. Immediately, the inside of the room was completely drained of the pleasant morning atmosphere, leaving behind only the cold illumination of the fluorescent lighting. Disturbing content equals best content? After the supervisor ensured that everyone was present, he nodded to the section chief once again. With everybody on the edge of their seats, the chief stood up solemnly, began to give his report.
推定48時間前、建設大臣の孫にあたる建設省幹部の子息が誘拐された模様です。
Okay, it's grandson, not son. There we go.
建設大臣は事態を穏便に済ませるため、警察へ通報せず要求に応じるものと思われます。
It seemed that approximately 48 hours earlier, the Minister of Construction's grandson and those of his senior staff members were kidnapped. The reason why it was phrased that way was because the person in question didn't admit it had happened.
大臣宅の通話を監視した結果、都外からと思われる不審な電話が数件確認されました。誘拐された子供は病気療養中となっているが、通院の形跡はなく、周辺での目撃例もなく、その他いくつかの理由から、事件発生は間違いないものと断定しました。
Here, they admitted the details that brought this incident to light. Think about it a bit. That meant that before this incident happened, the minister's residence had been under surveillance already. I won't use the words spied upon. Of course, there wouldn't have been court approval for this. It would have been very hard to explain to ordinary citizens. However, it's quite an effective method to catch wind of incidents like this before they got worse. I'd like for you to understand that dealing with these cases before they become a problem is the job of the Public Safety Division.
なぜ警察に通報せず要求を鵜呑みに？
大臣たる者が警察を信用できないってんだから、世も末だね。
犯人グループは誘拐初期に自分たちが大臣の生活をかなり高度に監視していることを警告し、その証拠を示した様子です。大臣が屈服し、警察への通報も思いとどまるほどの何かですね。
警察へ通報してもすぐにわかるぞって？
大臣の近辺に内通者がいる可能性。
I mean, there has to be someone close to the minister to be able to put that in his desk. Several of the higher-ranking members who seem to have experience with this kind of thing let out deep sighs.
犯人グループの目的が要求にあるのか、事件そのものにあるのかは不明ですが、いずれにせよ、国益を脅かす事態に発展する可能性が極めて高い。
Bitmaps are written in reverse? Do you mean like right to left? Is that what you mean? Their goal was to simply have their demands met for monetary gain. That would have been nice. However, this was some politically motivated shakeup. Things would get a lot more complicated.
被害者の協力がないということは、脅迫内容も要求も一切不明ということ。
Bottom to top? Especially if it's bottom left, that's actually not super uncommon to go to, like, raster the lines like that. I've seen that before.
本件は内通者の水準がかなり高いと思われるため、当室のみの極秘捜査とします。また本件は本日より最優先事項となり、これまでの通常業務を一時凍結して対応します。
Don't scan lines go top to bottom? I think they do, and you alternate, so you go like lines 1, 3, 5, and then you come in after you've done that and then do the even numbers, I think is how it works. And that's why if you have interlaced, you get that like weird tearing kind of look. But yeah, I'm not sure why it goes bottom to top, but it is something I have seen before.
よろしいですね。
After that, the supervisor continued on, tactfully explaining our course of action. If this incident were to become public, it was possible that the minister's political life would be over. I'll spare you the explanation of how the rest of the dominoes would fall. In the end, support in the Diet would decline. Diet is the Japanese government. Followed by a no-confidence vote and a snap election. Might even expand communist influences. In other words, we wanted to handle this delicately.
川崎と佐伯は大臣宅子供宅の通話を24時間監視。大臣の動向を探れ。動きがあるたびに逐一報告せよ。残る各職員は担当団体ごとに本件との関連を調査。最近動きが不穏な特殊ラインは集中的にやれ。それから外国勢力も水を漏らすな。
I've experienced one or two unamicable situations before. This, however, was the first time I've seen things get so hectic. Several sophisticated conversations were progressing without the involvement of a rookie like me. I didn't intend to be timid, but I couldn't hide my confusion at this unfamiliar situation.
では、書き打ちに行ってくれ。で、赤坂君は
I snapped back to alertness upon hearing my name called.
はい。赤坂君は大臣に陳情してきた環境保護団体関連を調査してくれ。中でも新聞でも騒ぎになってるひなみ沢ダム建設反対の団体をよく調査すること。住民団体の仕業とは到底思えないが、全ての可能性を潰していかなくてはならない。
わかりました。ひなみ沢ダム反対。
直接現地へ行った方がいいだろう。現地県警で情報を取れ。かなり過激な団体らしく、向こうの公安でもマークしてるらしいぞ。
わかりました。現地へ出向します。
奥さん、出産控えてるんだって？こんなタイミングで申し訳ないけど、協力頼むよ。時間がかけられないから、人海戦術で総当たりで行くしかないんだ。
ええ、わかってます。家内も自分の都合が私の仕事に触ることを嫌いますから。
すまん、ありがとう。それから川崎君、佐伯君、君たちの応援には。
I didn't want to take a business trip when my wife was about to give birth. Even if I was a little busy, as long as I was in Tokyo, I could head to the hospital right away. On assignment, though, that would be difficult. Even so, I knew the work I was doing was important and fully understood that I was in no position to be selfish. I have to make it up to my wife for having to be away at such an important time. My wife, Yuki, would probably forgive me with a smile. The only thing she could hate doing would be holding me back. My male ego, though, at least wished she would have tried to stop me. Sorry, Yuki. I don't mind if you always complain to our child that their father couldn't come to the hospital when they were born because he was too busy with work. Next day, I took the bullet train to Nagoya, and there transferred to the train to XX Prefecture. Getting to my destination by land took several hours. I was traveling by air, the amount of time I could probably get as far as Hong Kong. XX Prefecture was by no means close. I never sat in first class except for work. Whenever I did, the seat seemed stiff. Closing my eyes, I mentally reviewed the documents I read yesterday. The group under investigation, Onigafuchi Defense Alliance. They're a group of residents opposed to the development proposed under the Hinamizawa Dam project. The local protests were quite heated, were getting more radicalized. Even limited to what was written in the newspapers, there was bloodshed that occurred during a clash with riot police, interference with the dam construction, too many to count. The number of petitions, sit-ins, and direct appeals to the relevant organizations were innumerable. As an extension of that, there was a direct appeal to the Minister of Construction the other day.
これがそもそも今回この団体を調査することになったゆえんだ。
The land that they lived on was going to be submerged, so it was no wonder that they would go into a frenzy over it. Even given that, though, they really be capable of doing something like kidnapping the Minister of Construction's grandson in order to halt the project? My take on it, I had serious doubts. The kidnapping plot was extremely sophisticated and complicated enough that I was believed that there was some political backing. It wasn't something that could be pulled off by a group of local protesters. Well, just like the chief said, the plan was to eliminate all possibilities. While I'm in the XX Police's reference room, taking my time investigating, higher-ups in Tokyo would probably solve the case, without my involvement entirely. Even if that was true, I couldn't regret being away from Tokyo while my wife was ready to give birth. This was work. There was really nothing that I could do. Ding dong. The announcement that we would be arriving at our destination soon snapped me back to wakefulness. We're now at the local police.
鬼ヶ淵死守同盟ですか。
ええ、地元ではかなり賑わせているようです。
Prefectural Public Safety Department already had the documents and a cup of tea ready and waiting for me.
早い話がダム反対の住民運動なんですが、事実上水没地域の住民すべてが決起したと言っていいでしょうね。死守なんて古風な言い方が示す通り、相当の決意と覚悟を持った連中です。そこら辺の温和な住民団体とは一線を画すと思っていただいた方がいいですね。
The stack of papers they had prepared for me in the document room was by no means thin.
発足当初はごくごく平均的な住民運動だったんです。それがいつだかの流血事件を境に急にヒートアップしまして、今では暴力主義団体かそれに準じるくらいの過激な勢力に成長したと言えますね。
Violent organizations usually indicate ones that enforce their own ideology that regards the democratic process. Breaking that down, many of those organizations had extreme left revolutionary ideologies. Considering that, I couldn't help but be surprised that a citizens group would end up going this far. Radical citizens movement happened occasionally. It seemed, however, that this group was nothing as trifling as that. It seemed that I would have to reconsider exactly what this Onigafuchi Defense Alliance was.
鬼ヶ淵死守同盟が要求。つまり、ダム計画の撤回を求めるために行いうる活動範囲はどの程度でしょうか。
The kidnapping of the minister's grandson was classified. That meant, of course, I couldn't tell the XX Prefectural Department about it either.
ご存知の通り、先週あった犬飼建設大臣への直訴事件では逮捕者も出ています。危険性は十分にありますね。
Skimmed over the list of the criminal records related to the Onigafuchi Defense Alliance recorded in the documents. The contents were all violent, not giving me the barest hint of a feeling that these people were trying to uphold the law.
具体的に教えていただけますか。
The chief opened up a manila envelope, fished out several unorganized sheets, and spread them out on the desk.
建設現場への襲撃事件が最も多かったですね。初期の頃、電源コードの切断や錠前の鍵穴に石を詰める、投石による事務所の窓ガラス割り等の軽犯罪が頻発していました。
Of course, really happened first were things like demonstrations, sit-ins, distribution of pamphlets, lively but democratic forms of protests. However, then the demonstrators and police clashed, which started a riot, leading to numerous injuries and arrests. From then on that the Onigafuchi Defense Alliance, like their name implies, began to take a more demonic form of resistance. The Oni part of Onigafuchi means like a demon. That's why their name implies it.
襲撃が度重なれば地元警察による警備強化がなされるのでは。
そりゃ警戒はしたでしょうね。でもあちらは地元ですから。闇に乗じて忍び込まれたらお手上げでしょう。
Might as well label the entire map of Hinamizawa village around the dam construction site enemy territory. No matter how alert the police were, the locals would just show them exactly how easy it was to sneak around.
警察が警備を固めてからは、むしろ挑発されたように過激化が進みました。ほら、この辺りからだいぶヒートアップしてるのがお分かりになります？
事務所の放火、建設重機の破壊工作。破壊？まさか爆弾でも？
いや、まさか。連中ですね。タンクに角砂糖を放り込むんですよ。あれやられたらエンジン焦げついちゃいますから。
Even in Japan, it seemed like there had been people doing that to the vehicles of occupying forces right after the war. Compared to misdemeanors like breaking windows, it was extremely violent and aggressive.
そこまでやられたら地元警察の面目は丸つぶれですね。
放火はさすがにですね。それで地元警察が24時間体制の人員を大幅に増員しまして。
I don't think the game would have used scan lines anyhow, wasn't the dot matrix? I do not know.
それで建設現場への襲撃は一段落したようです。
Use the words quieted down. That was still smack dab in the middle of the list of crimes.
で、連中ですね。現場への直接攻撃が難しくなったと知ったら、今度は個人攻撃に切り替えました。最初に狙われたのが工事事務所の現場作業者でした。
After that, there was silence. What was being described to me was a guerrilla warfare fought in the jungle. Threats and violence against the workers. Harsh words and harsher rocks were thrown.
かなりの告訴がされているのに逮捕者があまり出ていませんね。
You genuinely love that we're back to Higurashi. It's like waiting half a year for the next season of a fantastic show. Well, I hate to tell you, Deadbeard, this will not be a very long season. I think I mentioned this while you were gone, but this game has like a playthrough time of 6 to 8 hours. I figure on stream it'll end up being a bit longer, and it might be 3, maybe 4 streams. But it actually shouldn't take too long.
そりゃそうです。
At least not compared to most games I play. It's quality, not quantity. Yes, exactly. I'm sure there will be quality things to make me regret playing this.
第一、目撃者なんかいないんですから。
I mean, you also missed the intro video, which had at least one person crying blood from their eyeballs. So that's happened already today.
それどころか、現行犯だったにしたって、アリバイがポンポンポンとできちゃうんです。
それはどういうことですか？
Where else would you cry blood through? To my knowledge, your tear duct gland is inside, like connected to like your nasal passage and stuff too, right? Could you cry blood out your nose or out your ears? So I thought that was why when you're crying, your nose also gets all stuffy because it's like connected. Thank you for the quote. Could you cry blood out your nose?
ある男にナイフで刺されたとします。あなたは相手をよく覚えていて、名前も住所も特定できてるとします。ただしナイフには指紋がなく、物的証拠だけがない。まあありがちな傷害事件だと思うでしょ。でもひなみ沢じゃ完全犯罪なんです。
Everybody is. The entire village. They're all in on it. Protect the man who is the perpetrator. They'll get their stories straight and prepare an alibi. That end, they'll probably even forge some evidence.
裁判にもつれ込ますほかないわけですが、何しろ物的証拠はない上、犯人を隠匿する証言だけは後から増えていく。検察も書類送検には二の足を踏むわけです。殺人ならいざ知らず、投石で額を切った、殴られてあざができた程度だと、仮に犯人を特定できたとしても嫌疑不十分で送検されないことがほとんどです。
Every case is without a doubt perpetrated by someone in Hinamizawa. They can't identify who. Even if they could figure out who it is, they're unable to obtain enough circumstantial evidence through due process. Villagers were all extremely well informed about this, though the malicious, vicious, and tenacious personal attacks continued.
被害者はそれでは納得できないでしょう。検察審査会に再審請求を出さないのですか？
それはですね、審査員たちがみんな厄介ごとに巻き込まれたくないと思っているからですよ。ひなみ沢関係のトラブルには首を突っ込みたがらないんです。
The inquest committee is comprised of a random selection of local residents. In the event the prosecutor fails to get a conviction, they have the power to order a retrial. It's a system designed to assert the will of the people on the actions of expert prosecutors in the legal world. This case, however, being composed of local residents, has backfired.
首を突っ込みたがらない。それはなぜです？
なんて説明すればいいんでしょう。恐れられているって言えばいいのかな。あそこはね、少し特殊なんです。
特殊？何か政治的なバックボーンが存在するということですか？
いえ、そういうのとは少し違うというか、まあ怖がられていると思ってください。この辺りは口では少し説明しにくいんです。ああ、そうだ、わかりやすいのがありました。
Wiping his forehead with a handkerchief, he opened a file labeled as a list of members of the Onigafuchi Defense Alliance.
鬼ヶ淵死守同盟の勢力にはですね、近隣の町々に強い影響力を持つ人間が多々おりまして、この辺をご覧いただけますか？
I looked. What I saw startled me. Prefectural and municipal assembly leaders, staff members of the Chamber of Commerce, executive of a business association, executive of a town council association, and a PTA liaison. There are more than a few people with a lot to say both locally and in the neighboring regions.
この界隈では、ひなみ沢のダム反対運動は皆静観しているのが普通なんです。ダムを肯定するような発言をすると、どこでどう巡って不利益を被るかわからない。何しろ近隣の町の喉元はひなみ沢出身の人間が抑えていますからね。
検察審査員のリストは非公開でしょう。報復がされないように何らかの措置が取られているはずでは。
一応非公開でプライバシーは守られてますがね。それを管理してるのは沖宮市役所の人間、つまり地元の人間なんです。守秘義務があるとはいえ、やはり人間のつながりは分かりませんからね。ひなみ沢の人間はそのあたりのつながりがことのほか強固ですから。
You consider the obligations and duties people have to the region. The web of information thereby formed is nothing to scoff at. Not uncommon for housewives in the neighborhood to know which kid from which house is what grade in which school, what subjects they're good at, what vegetables they hate, and among other things.
それにほら、ひなみ沢と遅延の深い暴力団組織がありましてね。
I don't even know what vegetables I like. Yet these people know vegetables the kid like 2 blocks over likes.
これが今回の騒動に全面バックアップしてるらしいんです。 こちらが出てくるのが一番効いてるみたいですね。
Joke's on them. I like none.
暴力団。ダムの建設反対で住民と一致。どういう利害が一致するのか読みがたいですね。
それは難しいことじゃないです。実はですね、この暴力団の組長がですね、ひなみ沢村の出身なんです。村の重鎮の一人の婿養子にあたりまして。
Exactly what was this Hinamizawa? I thought it was some desolate rustic village. However, for some reason they exerted a strong influence on the surrounding areas, had a strong sense of unity. They would protect their village by any means necessary, even if that meant resorting to violence. The chief had said they were afraid because there were numerous influential people living there. But somehow I got the feeling that they were afraid of the village itself. It was something clearly different from what I read in the documents in Tokyo. This was no simple residential protest against the dam. For some reason, an uneasy feeling began to nestle itself at the back of my mind. I chose the most basic way to ask my question. In other words, I directly asked what I wanted to know.
室長、これは例えば仮の話ですが。
はい。
例えば、その鬼ヶ淵主導名がダム計画を頓挫させるため、例えば要人を脅迫するようなことは考えられますか？
The chief replied
あり
immediately.
得るでしょう。事実、彼らは市役所や県庁、建設省の工事事務所にも押しかけ、恫喝まがいのことをしていますし、工事関係者の家族が不審者につけ回されたという事件も起こっています。
Well, that would make sense. To halt progress on the dam, they raided the construction site, destroying heavy machinery, lighting the construction office on fire. If they didn't have any qualms about doing that, threats and violence against people related to the dam would probably be no problem. But that was it. Even your everyday hoodlum could use threats and violence. However, this time, it was the kidnapping of the minister's grandson, an abnormally high-level crime. Not only was pulling off the kidnapping difficult in the first place, so was maneuvering to have the minister surrender to their demands immediately. There was no way this was the work of amateurs. Did these people have the power to enact this large of a crime? That was the heart of the matter. Was the Onigafuchi Defense Alliance an organization capable of pulling this off? In order to ask that question, once again, I chose the most basic method.
例えば、政府要人の関係者を誘拐して脅迫なんてことがあり得ると思いますか？
There's no way they could pull off something that big. That was the answer I most hoped for. That was the answer. My work was as good as halfway done. My people to get back in time for my wife to give birth. That was how it was supposed to be. Chief, without a hint of hesitation, replied,
やるかもしれません。そこの知れない連中ですから。
Sorry, Yuki. Seemed like my work wouldn't end so simply after all.
おう、赤坂君か。ご苦労さん。担当地域での情報収集はどうですか？
順調です。これから現地警察の公安と接触できることになりましたので、現地へ向かう予定です。東京の調査の方はどうですか？
他の職員も順調に調査を進めているよ。でも調べる団体が星の数だからね。そんなに悠長に時間もかけられないし。
There were no new developments at this time. No matter how suspicious the Onigafuchi Defense Alliance was, to solve the case in Tokyo, my job was done. Looked like my wishful thinking wouldn't come to pass. Hanging up the phone, I let my gaze drift outside the window, the valley of unfamiliar buildings.
赤坂さん、今お貸しできる車が戻ってきました。ご案内しますので、こちらへどうぞ。
あ、すみません。
He showed me the elevator to the underground parking lot, where a battered sedan was waiting for me. The steering wheel kept drifting to the left was a little concerning, but it would be enough to get me around for a while. My destination was Shishibone City, XX Prefecture, an area under the control of the Onigafuchi Defense Alliance. The Okonomiya police station was right on the front lines. How's the game going? Well, it's looking more and more like, the village may have kidnapped a bunch of people. We still haven't got to the point where we have sprites, although I did run through the game just like mashing, not looking at text to get to the point, just to make sure I had installed it properly. Cult type. And I do know we will be seeing a character fairly soon. Shishibone City was, as far as the provincial cities went, rather behind the times. Okonomiya receded in the mountains, was even more recessed in the mountains, was even more remote. With little change between the seasons, all that was left was the tepid passage of time, made for a rather drab town. There were no tourist attractions or local delicacies. Without even a strong regional industry, it was simply dull. Just looking at the monotonous and peaceful townscape, it's hard to catch a glimpse of the radical resistance of the Onigafuchi Defense Alliance. The atmosphere of boredom didn't hint of the Okonomiya police station being on the front lines of the damn conflict, nor of the numerous incidents that I had heard about at the prefectural headquarters.
おはようございます。違反金の納付ですか？
いえ、公安部の本田屋さんにアポイントがあります。赤坂とお伝えください。
失礼しました。少々お待ちください。
The clerk, who thought I was here for a parking violation at first glance, after fumbling with the unfamiliar extension number, told the person on the line they had a visitor.
どうもどうも。赤坂さんでいらっしゃいますか？縁のはるばるお疲れ様でした。こんな部屋で申し訳ありませんね。応接室を押さえてあったんですがね。議員さんが突然お越しになっちゃったんで追い出されちゃいまして。
I would hesitate to call where we were a conference room. It was very small and cluttered. Cramped space was packed with lockers. I had the impression that it was more of a change room that doubled as one for smoking. Listening to his crude chortles, I didn't get much of a feeling that Hondaya, who was the head of the local public safety division, was much of an intellectual. But I knew that, in exchange, he had both experience and absolute confidence in his instincts.
ご多忙中、突然お邪魔して申し訳ありませんでした。警視庁から参りました。赤坂と申します。よろしくお願いします。
公安部の本田屋です。よろしくよろしく。県警防隊の3階部長から協力を惜しむなと脅されておりますので。
防隊？県警の暴力団対策本部ですか？
うちじゃ鬼ヶ淵支所の連中は暴力団の延長に位置づけてますんでね。あれを善意の住民運動だなんてあんた、東城もいいとこですわ。
Said at the prefectural office too that the Onigafuchi Defense Alliance was linked to the local mob. If I recall correctly, the adopted son of somebody influential was a lieutenant in that gang.
そりゃ逆。全然逆ですよ。暴力団の活動があって、それに住民団体が大義名分みたいにくっついていると、そういう風に考えてください。逆逆。
And I was just about rolling with laughter. This was slightly different than the info given to me at the prefectural office. Somebody embedded locally would be more knowledgeable. While we were talking, occasionally some people who seemed to be detectives would come in and change. One of those individuals, noticing Hondaya's guffaws, came up to us. We have a person who apparently has his own jazz soundtrack. He did it. He's guilty. He has a picture. So yes, we have our three pictures. The original game art, which is horrible. I think that's the console remake, and the newer remake. Let me double check that. Oh yes, and do I have the lip syncing? Is that one of the things I can do?
Oh,
or is that only on this one?
ちょうどよかった。クラちゃんも入ってよ。こちら、はるばる東京の警視庁からお見えになった赤坂警
I just want to see him talk to see if I can get the lip syncing.
警部だなんて。まだまだ新米です。赤坂です。よろしくお願いします。
初々しいのがいいですね。
Yeah, so this is the only one that has the lip syncing. This was the one that was done for the Switch. I'm in agreement with Deadbeard. I like the newest version the best.
採用は今年ですか？
I couldn't help but think I was being ridiculed, so I only responded with a forced smile. I could tell that this person was like Hondaya, the type who had confidence in their instincts and experience. I didn't really like those types of people.
赤坂さんにもご紹介します。こちらは刑事部の大石くん。赤坂さんがお問い合わせの S 号の件なら彼が詳しいです。
S 号？
園崎の S。S 号ってのはですね、園崎家が関連している件を示す、まあ、暗号みたいなもんなんです。
They had the lip sync data. You'd think they'd create 2 new frames and have it line up to the same info. Yeah, I mean, just being able to... So I think it was... Is it... 2 of these are the ones actually part of the game, and one of them is... Okay, yeah, so... The original only had the console and the remake. The original art, this original cursed art is from the mod we're using that has a bunch of updates to it, including like fully remastered HD sound effects, stuff like that. I'm not sure how they got their hands on the original artwork, to be entirely honest. He's pregnant. Or he kidnapped everyone. Oh, and then ate them. Yeah. I mean, but what we've learned is that someone 2 blocks away knows that his favorite meat is human flesh. Sonozaki? Come to think of it, I remember when I was poring over the documents at headquarters, there were quite a few people with the last name Sonozaki popping up.
確か、園崎氏は鬼ヶ淵死守同盟の役員でしたね。確か、会計だったと思います。
The 2 of them were surprised when I rattled off what post that Sonozaki held. After a moment, both of them erupted into laughter.
赤坂さんでしたっけ？
Isn't it everyone's?
あなた、お勉強家さんですね。ひょっとして、同盟の連中の主要人物、全部暗記してるんじゃ？
暗記というほどではありませんが、一応鬼ヶ淵死守同盟の幹部リストは一読しました。
じゃあ会長と副会長は？
会長は現ひなみ沢村村長の君吉喜一郎氏。副会長は町会神社部長の古出氏。会計が園崎を領して、会計監査は牧野氏。教頭部長が君吉義
For someone who's like read this list once, he has memorized a lot of stuff.
赤坂さん、あなたなかなかやりますね。給料安いけど、うちに来ません？うちに一番必要で、一番いないタイプですよ。で、 ちなみに園崎貞夫は青年部長なんです。惜しいですね。広報部長は園崎忠孝。
Feeling like I wasn't being complimented at all, I started settling into an uncomfortable mood. However, I was becoming more and more aware that I was the weakest link in this investigation. I just had to bear with it. I didn't mean for that feeling to show up on my face, but the crafty detectives didn't let that slip by. You don't think the program is happening?
バカにしたつもりはないんです。お詫びと言っちゃなんですが。なんでしたら、
What's going on with your program, Samus? It is also like 9:30. I mean, it is at the point where I feel like coding is a thing that should be stopping. For somebody with no feel for the area like me, it would be a great help. Couldn't have asked for more.
鬼ヶ淵死守同盟ってのは、結局、ひなみ沢村の対外的な別称に過ぎません。村を知ることが、あなたのお仕事の近道だと思いますよ。いかがです？
The output is literally deleting itself. Can't generate a valid bitmap, and you can't validate the data because there's no... Oh no, is there like, yeah, I don't quite know what's happening in your case, but maybe if you did like a screen recording, and then you could pause frame if it's just like lasting for one frame. I'm not sure if that's the case, or if it's just not appearing at all. Residential movement, in other words, held influence over the whole region. The leader of the movement was the leader of that influence. Just like that, thought processes in the region would become the overall personality of the movement. Just like Oishi had said, in order to learn what they were really like, this regional force behind the dam protests, getting to know the village was the quickest way.
よろしくお願いします。
Nodding back without skipping a beat, Oishi laughed in satisfaction and stood up. Pseudo make program work? Then you have to enter a password. I took the information I learned at the prefectural office and from Hondaya to heart. If my position was exposed, my personal safety was at risk. The opponent was an extremist group that had no qualms about using threats or violence against somebody. If my personal info was leaked, it wouldn't be hard to imagine that I'd be in danger, whether on the job or not. Thinking that, I felt a little nervous.
連中は顔覚えるの早いですからね。私と一緒にいるところを見られると多分、いろいろあなたのお仕事に差し支えると思います。
The password is always tour because it's root backwards.
月並みですがね、こいつを身につけておいてください。
Boy, she handed me an incredibly suspicious disguise comprised of a baseball cap, sunglasses, and a mask. I didn't want to get all hot and stuffy. Oishi's warning was probably right on the money. Considering that, I put them on with appreciation. I looked so suspicious that Oishi had to smile wryly.
どこまで話しましたかね?
You're going to bed because you're really unhappy? I'm sorry to hear that you're unhappy, Samus. I do hope that you were able to feel better tomorrow. But yes, a good night's sleep, I find, is always a good way to feel better. And I hope you have a wonderful evening.
御三家という旧家が村を支配しているというところまでです。
The Onigafuchi Defense Alliance was the same as the village of the Hinamizawa itself, meaning there was a direct correlation between being an executive in the alliance and being a leader in the village, as Hondaya had told me a short time ago. To Big TM, thank you also for sticking it out, and thank you once again for the sub. I hope you have a wonderful night, and I hope to see you again soon. The village was ruled by 3 ancient families, and would mean the Onigafuchi Defense Alliance was ruled by those same 3 families.
県警の資料には何て書いてありました？死守同盟のリーダー格とかそういうことについて。
Samus, I have. The problem is they were gifts, and gift subs do not count towards founder badges. Yes, several people have been sniped for founder badges. The documents I was using were classified. I responded to Oishi's question, it'd be a breach of security. However, most likely, this man I judged was more well versed in the situation than any of the documents at the prefectural police department, so I decided to answer him.
同盟の会長は
Deadbeard's plan has been
現村長
revealed.
君吉喜一郎と
Yes, good night, everyone. Good night, Samus. Good night, the big TM. Oishi, upon hearing that, let out a small chuckle. For him to ask like that, and to laugh at the answer that was recorded in the documents, meant that wasn't the case in reality.
では君吉氏以外の影の人物がいるということですね。県警の持つ、いや一般的な情報とは異なり
君吉のじいさんなんてただのお飾りですよ。そもそもこの村じゃ村長なんてポスト自体も形式だけなんです。
つまり同盟も村も本当の意味で支配している別の存在がいる。それが先ほどおっしゃられていた御三家という存在ですか。
まあそのあたりはこれからご説明します。
Odd question, but is there anyone in the world where uncles are referred to as Pop? I don't know. Maybe. I feel like that's more dad or, like, grandpa. Oh, all of a sudden, with a thunk, the car suddenly lurched. The paved road had given way to a gravel one. At the same time, the scenery outside the window changed. The Hinamizawa Dam project must be withdrawn. Overthrow the shameless puppet of a government. The dam will submerge the natural beauty of Hinamizawa. Protect the village from the unethical dam. But if not, Popeye could be the culinary result of uncle hunting. Fear the wrath of Oyashiro-sama's curse. Demolish the dam. Those involved must go away. The construction office must respond. The construction office manager must negotiate with us. Signs and banners crowded the roadside. Even reading the brush-scrawled words was daunting. It was as though where the road just changed was a border with a different country. At that moment, I was startled by the car suddenly braking. Looking ahead, a barricade had been erected. About 5 or 6 protesters, wearing masks and helmets to hide their faces, were blocking the road, yelling at us angrily to stop.
これは何ですか。検問。
はあ、懲りない連中だな。
She snorted as he rolled down the window and leaned out.
おいおいおい、あんたらダメだよ、こんなとこで道を塞いじゃ。
As Oishi glared at them with a malicious laugh, they visibly faltered.
道開けてくださいな。それじゃ通れないでしょう。
Who'd have thought it was Oishi's car? That panic thought seemed to make them lose their presence of mind.
大石刑事の車と分かってればこんなご無礼はしなかったんですがね。大石刑事。
Yes, it is quite. I was thinking earlier that this is kind of like an extension of the kids reading challenge, so I read a whole lot in this game. Except this will not make you want to go to sleep.
車検ですか。
そんなところです。台車ってのはどうにも馴染みませんね。
Judging from their brief conversation, yes, they were familiar with the license plate of the car Oishi normally used. In other words, if they knew the car belonged to the police, they would have hidden the barricade. What they were doing was obviously obstruction of traffic, a blatant crime.
そっちの怪しい男は誰です？あんた、顔を見せてくれませんか？
You're imagining me read the lyrics to song as if they were high-class novels. The man glared at me menacingly. Wearing a mask and sunglasses made me look particularly dubious. Would not showing my face get me into some unnecessary trouble? I turned to Oishi to see what I should do.
彼の顔は勘弁してあげてください。まだまだ新米でシャイなんですからね。
不審な輩じゃないか確認しようってだけです。最近のひなみさんは物騒ですからね。
ね。あんたのうち鏡歪んでるのと違います。あんたのその面の方がよっぽど不審ですよ。な。
Men and Oishi continued to talk like that, feigning smiles at one another. However, from the beginning to the end, I couldn't get over the feeling that I was sitting on a powder keg.
ゴミの不法投棄車両まだ減らないんですか？オタクたちも本当に朝晩大変ですね。
警察の方にもご理解とご協力をいただけて助かりますよ。
During that conversation, the barricade was moved, leaving a gap wide enough for a single car to get through. Oishi lightly honked the horn once and began to roll the car forward. I could see the men's antagonistic glares at the back of the car in the rearview mirror.
何ですかさっきのは。勝手に行動を封殺するなんて。
もちろん犯罪ですよ。目くじら立てても始まりませんがね。連中の主張じゃですね、村内に不法投棄をするトラックが出没するって言うんです。それを封じ込めるために不審車両を検問してるって話だそうで。
不法投棄？参拝を勝手に捨てようとする悪徳業者のことですか？
警察が何の手も打たないから自分たちで自衛するっていう論法でしてね。まあ参拝なんて話はどうせ自演だからどうでもいいんですがね。
自演？
連中うまい作戦なんですよ。ダム現場にですね、工事妨害のために参拝ゴミを自分たちでばらまいてるんです。で、それを悪徳業者のせいってことにして臨検を設置すると。それで工事車両をいちいち足止めしてチクチクと妨害してるってわけなんです。
鬼ヶ淵主同盟の抵抗運動の一つというわけですね。
多分今の検問でこの車のナンバーが割れましたからね。もうこの先には一切検問の真似事はないと思います。連中も私を怒らせると得をしないことだけはよね。
They don't like him when he's angry. Then their kids go missing and his gut gets bigger.
この車が工事関係車両だと知れるとですね、散々検問で足止めを食らうばかりか、投石や鉄釘のばらまきなんかも食らうって噂です。あなたも身元が割れないようにせいぜい気をつけた方がいいですよ。公安なんてバレたらどんな目に遭うやら。
She was acting like we were talking about something fun. For me, it was no laughing
まるで
matter.
どこぞの内戦の国に迷い込んだような錯覚です。
あんた、そりゃうまい言い方です。今言われたのはまさにその通り。
She turned to me with a grin and menacing laugh.
ここはね、戦争地帯なんですよ。
The car slowed down a bit as it went down a narrow road through some farmland.
あそこの森の中に家があるのが見えます？
I think we're gonna call it there. We've had some people starting to head off, and I do want to make sure that people are able to see this.